Let me ask you something. Are you getting everything out of your rent-to-own business? If you're not an A-Pro member, then the answer is probably no. Look, advocacy is A-Pro's bread and butter. This is why they were created and what they do best. But here's the thing. A-Pro membership is about way more than advocacy. A-Pro connects you to the movers and the shakers of the industry, people who've been there, done that, and they can help you do it even better. A-Pro's monthly webinars give you expert insights and actionable takeaways. It's like having a masterclass for your business every single month. Got questions about complex regulations or sticky situations? No problem. A-Pro's legal hotline gives you direct access to experts who have got the answers. That's a peace of mind that you can't put a price on. And let's not forget the resources, news, updates, and tools that keep you ahead of the curve. Scholarships for your team? Check. Disaster relief when you need it most? Double check. A-Pro is your ultimate support system in the rent-to-own world. So stop settling for less. With A-Pro, members get more. More support, more connections, and more success. Head over to rtohq.org and join the A-Pro family today. Because in this business, more isn't just better. It's essential. See you at the top with A-Pro. Hello, and welcome to the RTO Show. I'm your host, Pete Chow. Let's talk rent-to-own again with Andrew Hajduk from Vox-pop-uli, which we talked about that off air, but on air, it's voice of the people, right?
That is correct. Vox-populi is Latin for voice of the people.
When I first looked that up, I actually looked pop and uli separate. So I was like, voice of, it says kind of the people? I kind of had to put it together. So it's a marketing thing, right?
It is. It was when we started the company in 1996, I wasn't creative enough to think of a name, and I didn't want a name that tied us to any one specific thing we do because technology changes, things like that. And while we thought we had a really good idea, we didn't know what direction the company was going to go. So we hired a designer to come up with a name and a look for it. And he came up with the name Vox-pop-uli, Latin for voice of the people, and then kind of the whole look. And the logo really hasn't changed since 1996. And, it's got a nice, strong look, and it's a great story. Even now, people still ask, how'd you come up with that name? So
we talk about the way it was branded and the way it looked. Today, we're talking about sales versus marketing, the differences. What are the tangible differences between sales and marketing, and why do we sometimes get it confused? What's the difference really? And how is it that we're missing one? Sometimes we get one and not the other, or sometimes we don't even know which shoe comes first, right? We don't know which foot to put forward because we haven't defined it yet.
So I think you hit the nail on the head with that last statement there. Is it hasn't been defined. We jumble it up. Even in some of the biggest Fortune 50 companies and things like that, you have a VP of sales and marketing. So we look at them as kind of whether it's interchangeable or whatever, but really it's two different things, right? So if you look at it, and I always start and I look at stuff like this and I sit there and say, okay, so what's the definition of it? So I looked it up. And, the definition of marketing, at least according to whoever it was when I Googled it, was the business activity that involves finding out what customers want, using that information to design products and services, setting price, and promoting and selling them effectively, right? So that is basically, and if you go back, and I forget who it was, but it was like sometime in the 50s and 60s, somebody defined marketing as the 4 Ps, which was product, place, price, and promotion. Right? That's what marketing was. Figure out what products you want to sell your customers. Figure out where are we going to sell them, right? Are we going to sell them through a store? Are we going to sell them door to door? That was part of the classic definition. Now we're talking about online, right? What's our channel? Are we B2B, B2C, those kind of things? What's the price, right? How are we going to price these items? And then how do we promote it? Are we going to do direct mail, broadcast, billboards, whatever it is, right? Those are the 4 Ps of marketing. And then you have selling, right? And selling to me is kind of a standalone thing, and we use marketing to support selling. But the definition of selling to me is simple. It's the act of influencing or persuading someone to exchange money for a product or a service, right? We buy to solve a problem, right? And my job is that that's really what brings money in the store, right, is selling. I can market however much I want. I can do all these things to create awareness. I can drive traffic to the store. But if I don't have somebody that can sell, if I don't have somebody that can close that deal at the end, nothing happens.
So if I was to say a proverbial look at what we're talking about a fishing pole, a hook being your marketing. That's what you cast out. That's what you're trying to attract with. That's your net. That's your chum on the line. That's what we're doing. But the sale is actually closing the sale and saying somebody came in, you walked in, you want something, and I'm going to make that transaction happen. So it's not necessarily the billboards and the signs and the deals. It's the actual deal versus marketing would get somebody in the door to see the deal happen.
Right. I think that's it. I think marketing is, again, setting the product, how we're going to sell it, getting the pricing right, doing all of those things. And then you've got the sale, which is the act of convincing Pete to give me $20 for this or $100 for this or $1,000 for this and doing that exchange. You use the fishing analogy. I think one's fishing and one's a little bit more hunting.
Hunting would probably be better, right? Because you're honing in, you're looking at it. So somebody comes in, they're new to the business. We're talking to them about how the business works, the rental, the sale, the collections, the aspects that come along with it. Why do you think we blur that line sometimes? Why do you think there's a blurred line between what sales actually is and what marketing can be from a new standpoint? I'm new to the business. I don't really know what's going on. I'm kind of getting those two confused. Why would I get those confused, though?
Well, I think the first thing that comes up with somebody that's new to the business is we take for granted that we can do it in the store, that, you can do it, I can do it, anybody else can do it, the guys that have been around for forever can do it, and we can close that deal versus somebody that's just come in and doesn't have that skill. We process all that information to sit there and go through and say, okay, it's this kind of customer, so I'm going to be able to sell them this or at this price, and I'm going to use this approach to take them. But I think that line's gotten blurry for that reason. And I think with that, we're just not doing, and I say this for everybody, and then, we went through a little bit of this at Vox for a while too, until we sat down and got some help with it. But I think one of the biggest challenges is the lack of a clearly defined plan. I'm going to have a marketing plan, and my marketing plan doesn't get measured in a week. It gets measured over a quarter, over 6 months, over a year. Hey, we're going to do this, and here's what our sales are going to be. We're going to have this pricing, this offer, all of those things, and we're going to have that. And then we've got a sales plan and a sales strategy. And that involves training on sales skills, not just familiarizing somebody else with the promotion, but it involves training and teaching people how to sell.
I think innately what happens sometimes too between marketing and sales is that we get excited for the marketing, right? We would say, okay, this is a great new idea. We're putting it out there. What we're tracking on that marketing is the cost. We're not tracking what it does. We track it essentially in the sense that, did we get the sales? Sales is attached to marketing. We have to put them in the same boat. But sales isn't necessarily just about the marketing that was done. Sometimes sales is also regulated by who you have on the other end of the stick, who you have on the other end of the phone, who's on the other end of the online transaction, who's on the other opposite end of the showroom. And they're walking in, and are they really closing those sales? So in your opinion, have you had times where you looked at a marketing situation and said, man, this is out of the park. This is next level. This is some great stuff. This can really drive some traffic. And then on the sales aspect, as we're going over the numbers, you're like, I don't really understand where the transition different was. Is it because we're not really differentiating the sales and marketing aspect to our people early enough, and maybe saying, yeah, I can bring them in the door all I want to, but if I can't sell anything, then it doesn't matter how well I can get them in the door. It only matters how well I can close it.
I think that that's a big part of it. I think that we focus on, because the cool stuff, the fun stuff that everybody gets excited about is, hey, what's the promotion? What's the offer? What's the look? What's the theme? All of that stuff. Do we get t-shirts with it? Whatever that comes about it, it's all of those things. And then we focus on, and then we don't focus on what I believe is probably the most important thing is the actual sales part of it. And that is making sure that our people are ready. all the way from making sure, do I understand the promo, right? If I have an offer, what does this offer mean to the customer? Do my people know how to sell? I think that we make a big assumption, especially, this is as we get older, as we get more experience, maybe we believe that everybody can sell naturally, but it's not. It's a skill that has to be worked just like anything else. We assume that people have this and we don't work with them on that. And I think that is a huge challenge, right? We can have a great promo. We can drive all kinds of people to the store. But if there's not somebody there to close it or to sell it, right? It's just like going to buy a car or anything else. You still have to talk to that salesperson. They still want you to go on a test drive. They want to make sure that they take you through a very defined sales process to make sure, one, that you're a happy customer, two, that they get you closed and everything like that. But there is a process to it, and that all the objections are handled so that if you do get in the finance department and it's at the very end, you're not sitting there surprised at the last minute. You have fallen in love with that product and you're going to sign your name away for the next 6, 7, 8 years, whatever you finance that car for.
Let's take a quick break.
Hey everyone, it's Pete Chow here from the RTO Show podcast, and I want to tell you about a company that's making a real difference in the rent-to-own space. Wow Brands. I've seen firsthand how they approach marketing. And let me tell you, it's not just about ads. Wow Brands builds complete digital ecosystems designed specifically for the rent-to-own industry. Their e-commerce and lead generation strategies are built to bring in qualified leads. And did I mention that they are actively working with the rent-to-own industry while also being members of APRO and TRIB? Listen, these folks are passionate problem solvers. They don't just slap something together. They design, build, and scale the kind of digital retail tools your business needs and your customers actually want. So if you're serious about growing, reach out to Wow Brands at wowbrands.com. I trust them, and I think you will too. It's funny that you bring that up, because I'm going to come back to the chicken and the egg, but I kid you not, when I think of car dealerships, it's probably the closest thing I can think of to rent-to-own, right? Because you get online and what do? You shop prices, you shop brands, you shop models, you shop colors, you shop interiors. Absolutely. But then you still got to go to the store. I mean, you can do it online. They do have those car dealerships where you can kind of order your car and they bring it to your house. I've read so many articles about people like just unhappy with their purchase because they didn't know how it rode. They didn't know what it felt like. It doesn't have the steering radius that I thought it was. It feels kind of luggy. It's not what I wanted. It's a little too fast. It's a little too small. It feels a little too light. But you don't get that, right? So no matter how you have these Carvanas set up, in the majority of the car sales world, you can go online all you want to. You can call them if you want to, but you're going to that location to make that purchase. And I feel like rent-to-own is right there. Mm-hmm. What I feel like is that people forget we're almost built that way. That marketing is to get them online to check out what sofa, the color, its features. Does it have a cup holder? Does it not have a cup holder? Does it have a little storage area? Does the feet come out? Does it have neon lights? Does it have rubber feet? But then you still got to sit in it. And so the question going back to my first statement is, so then what's more important? As somebody who's been in marketing, you've been in the business for years and years and years. If I have $1 to spend, do I spend it on my sales budget and teaching somebody how to close a sale? Or do I spend that money on a marketing budget and getting people in the door? What's first? What's that chicken and egg situation?
So if the dollar can't be torn and it can't be divided, and I was to choose where to spend that first, I would work on the sales part of it first, because the sale drives revenue. Then we have revenue, then we have more money to spend where now we can start to market and start to sell. Again, the world has been littered with people that blew their entire advertising budget on a Super Bowl commercial or something like that, and then didn't have a product to sell or didn't have a way to fulfill that are gone now. And you look at that, it's not a marketing problem that companies have. It's a sales problem that companies have. So if I had to pick one to focus on first, I'd focus on sales first, for sure. Because, again, this and anybody listening that's been doing this for a while and stuff like that, if I asked y'all, could you guys go out and, open a store and get it going with nothing but you. Yeah, it might be tough, but every single person would say, yeah, all I need to do is have the opportunity to talk to people, and I can sell them.
So then, and I want everybody listening to understand that comment, that statement, and how prolific that is. You can invest in marketing all you want to. You can look good, right? You can go out there and have all the advertisements that you want. And you can put the little slogans on it that make people go, wow, that's pretty catchy. I need to see that guy. But if they're walking in the door and you're not closing sales, you have wasted $1. But it goes the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
If you have some great people that are good at selling, but they're not reaching some outreach because you haven't put something into the marketing budget, they might land. Maybe a good portion, maybe 6 out of 10, maybe 7 out of 10. Maybe they're just knocking it out of the park. They're that good. But what good is that if we don't have enough numbers for them to come knock it down? And then you've always got to figure out your marketing to sales, because if you have 100 people come in, you only have 2 great salespeople. They're not going to meet everybody's needs. If you have 25 people come in, and they can land most of those, then you're at your limit. Then you got to figure out what comes next. Do I add another salesperson? Do I add to marketing? And you got to build that up. What's a good way? What's a good way to structure that and say, this is how I would do it in order to make this ladder? I would create, just out of nowhere, I'd say, okay, let's create a sales program so that I understand that my guys know how to close. And in that process, when do I start throwing out the marketing so that when my guys are done, I'm not sitting there waiting for the 10 days or 2 weeks or 3 months for it to kick in, that people start actually walking in the door? You understand this more than most. How does a structured outcome look like where you can say, this is an outline and this is how I would get the most out of it? I'm going to start a class today, but maybe I started marketing 2 weeks ago, or maybe I put my plan together and I'm not going to start marketing until the end of the sales class. How does that work? And what does it look like?
So I think that those two things happen concurrently. I think that, I believe that a big challenge that we face is we work hard on our marketing calendars. We work hard on getting everything set. And then we sit there and say, we're going to roll it out. And it's like, hey, we're going to have this promotion next week. Let's start training the guys, right? Let's start talking about the offer or the objection or stuff like that. Well, we should be working on those things the whole time. And, I always tell people I believe sales is a life skill. It's not just a business skill, right? Because everything we do, we're trying to get a sale. So we can work on that the entire time. And I think we have to take it back down to the basics. And I think this is where maybe the gap is for some folks. And it was one of the things that we realized at Vox is we were going through this and trying to build our level of salesmanship, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it in the company. But let's go back, right? Do my associates understand everything they need to understand with the sale? Do they understand, how to greet the customer, how to talk to the customer, how to present to the customer, how to handle any objections with the customer? Do they understand the different customer types that we have coming into our store, right? We have existing customers that come into our store. We have customers that come into our store with a need, and then we have customers that come into our store just to make a payment. Sometimes we have inactive customers come back because they need something. That is a different sale than an active customer. And then we have new blood come in, right? An existing customer, they understand rent to own. New customers may not understand rent to own. I just moved into town and I need a washer and dryer. So I think that's all the training that can happen that's not promotion specific. And that's the stuff that needs to be going on all the time, whether it's, weekly, a couple times a week, stuff like that. But set structured times to where we're teaching people how to sell. I've participated in all kinds of different sales training activities and stuff like that you sit there and say, right, there is a correct structure for a call if I'm making a sales call, and a script I should follow and an outline that follows. I should be giving people my first name within 20 seconds and getting their name in exchange, right? Pete, you've seen it. How many times have you been sitting in a store and you see a customer come in and then they leave and you ask them what happened? Oh, they were just looking. Did you get a name? No. And it's that to me is that tree falls in the forest thing. Well, then nothing really happened. So I think that's a big part of it. I think we go back. So while that promo is getting done, or even between promos or anything like that, we are working on basic sales skills. I believe that's what's missing. I don't believe there's any such thing as a born salesperson. I think it is a skill that you develop, that you get better at, and we can become more professional. We can continue to work on. Do some people have more outgoing personalities that may help? Sure. But there's no such thing. Nobody is an expert. Nobody can convince, right? Nobody can sell ice cubes to Eskimos, right? I mean, you have to understand what we're selling and what we're doing and going through that process. So that's an ongoing part of it. And then when the promotion comes, now we can coach to the promotion, right? Now we can sit there and say, okay, guys, here's the offer. Here's the product that we're trying to move, whatever it is, and we can go to that. But just good general sales skills, I believe that's a lot of what's missing out there.
So you said a word in that last go around that really made me think. Marketing is putting myself out there. You know that I'm here. This is the days of the week that I'm open. This is my telephone number. This is my address. This is my email, or this is my web address to come see me. But then what's the difference between marketing and promotions?
Well, promotions are a part of marketing. I mean, promotions is a part of marketing. That is the flyer. That is the ad. That is, how are we going to get, right? And we tend to think of promotions as an event or something, but really promotions is how do we let the potential customer, the shopper, know what's going on in our store or what's going on in our company, right? And whether it is a spring sale or a Memorial Day mattress event or something like that, or that we're just letting people know that, hey, Andrew's Rent to Own is here, and I've got furniture, electronics, appliances, and computers, and these are the brands I carry. Promotion kind of falls into both of those things, right? We should be promoting 24/7. We should be letting people know always what we are, what we have going on, and getting the word out there, right? It's stuff that we talk about all the time with who we're going out and doing our guerrilla marketing with and going and visiting businesses to businesses. All of that stuff ties into promotion. Some of it is evergreen, same thing that we're doing every single Tuesday, 52 Tuesdays throughout the year. And then sometimes, hey, we've got an event going on. It's tax season, so we're promoting this.
I like the idea that, when you have a good salesperson, they know how to incorporate the promotions. They know how to be marketers. And are we lacking on marrying that sales versus marketing situation? Are we when we teach somebody to sell, right? Let's say they're not avid salespeople. We get them pretty good. We put them through the boot camp, right? We're showing them how to get names and numbers and emails and writing down actually what they're looking for, and maybe having them try out a couple of different processes. Like, I know this is not the set that you want, but try this out. This has the same comfortability level. This is the same contemporary, modern, whatever, traditional. And so we get them going. Is that something that we're lacking? Are we lacking getting them to understand that if you marry in your marketing and promotions into your sales pitch, into your sales agenda, that might even be better for the situation, not only for the store, for the sale, for the customer, but for yourself as a salesperson as well?
Oh, 100% I agree. And I think we have to get our people good at selling first. We don't want them to be reliant only on a promotion. We don't want people to sit there and say, you remember the old days when you could go into a Macy's and they would tell you, you walk up with the shirt and say, hey, this shirt's this much. When are you having a next sale? And they say, oh, we're having a sale in a week. Okay, cool. I'll be back then. And so we put off the sale. We don't take that customer off the market, right? We don't want to build a business where it's totally promotional either, and that they're reliant on that. I always challenge salespeople that I work with, and I ask them, I said, who's the first person to bring up price in a sales situation? And many times, you'll find out that it is the salesperson. And I think salespeople do that because a lack of knowledge about the product, a lack of ability to take the customer through the process to get them to fall in love with the product, to get them to sit on the product, to get them to understand how this product solves a problem for them, right? Hey, it's a $100 product, but it solves a $200 problem. That's an easy sale. But we don't know how to go through those steps with the customer. We don't know how to recognize the difference between objections and complaints, or just objections and statements, right? And people say that. So the first thing the salesperson does is they either lean on a promotion or they try to discount or whatever. And that's just taking away margin. So I think that, yes, can we marry it to make it better? But look, the great ones, they don't need it. They may use it as an excuse to get the customer in here. Hey, we've got all kinds of great deals and things like that. But it's not solely reliant on that promotional offer.
Put it in the back pocket.
In the back pocket, always.
So, going through the history and seeing the fundamental differences between yesterday and today, Chris Cale Jr. was running something, he was talking about it a lot for the last few places that I remember him talking. It was called Sales 2.0, right? And basically it's a version of how to get the sale done, but maybe in a different way, something a little bit more modern and take them, like you said, take them out of the market pretty quick. You want to, you don't want to let that flounder sit. You want to sit there and get it caught, make sure that it's on a rental agreement as soon as possible, make sure we set up a delivery as soon as possible and get things done. I mean, that's not the whole thing, it's the gist of it. What has updated in marketing that's so different from what it was 10 years ago and 20 years ago? And why is it so different now? I mean, is everybody connected to their phone? What are the fundamental differences that if I'm showing my sales staff, this is the sales aspect of it, this is the marketing aspect of it. What looks different in my sales class today than it did maybe 10 years ago?
I think what you're looking at is our shoppers, our customers have access to information like they've never had before. So not just about the product, not just about the features and benefits, not just about the stuff that we can read off the box, the TV box that tells us the resolution, the size, all that other stuff. They have that intelligence, and then they also know what every single one of our competitors is showing as an advertised price. So I think that our salespeople, that level of expertise that maybe you had to have 10, 15, 20 years ago has gone up a few notches. So now we have to know how to better not just be even more expert on that. We have to be able to communicate, hey, this is how this product is going to fix this problem for you, Mr. Customer, and make them understand it in that, to where it's not just we're the cheapest price, that's why you should buy from us. We need to make that customer fall in love with it, right? Just like the car dealership, right? They want you sitting in that car. They want you to put your hands on the leather. They want you to feel how good that new perforated leather looks or feels and stuff like that, so that you're going through that and you're falling in love with it. Because then you're looking out there in the parking lot at your 10-year-old truck going, there's no way I'm driving home in that thing, right? And we have to be able to do that, not just spit off products and stuff like that, or features of products, but to be able to make the customer really fall in love with that, because they're making a decision to buy. They've already, they're 99% there when they walk in the store. They've done the research. They can go online and they can Google best place to buy whatever. And whether you're number 1 or number 5, they can still click on those things and say, oh, hey, this queen mattress is this much here, it's this much here, it's this much here. But this place is closest, so I'm going to go there first. That doesn't mean you're guaranteed the deal. That just means they went to you first.
I think that sometimes as we go through this, we forget how fast changes can occur, right? So what's good today might not be good tomorrow. It used to be what's good today might not be good next week. Now it could be what's good first thing in the morning might not be good tonight, because information does travel so fast. People do have access to the latest news that quickly. How would I use that in a marketing and sales strategy where everything changes so quickly? How do I use that as an advantage and get people to see I'm on the cusp of what's going on? I am the latest thing that's happening right now. As a rent-to-own company, this is what I've got going on at this minute. How do I tie into that? How do I get people to see who I am in the midst of everything that they're doing? Because there is information overload now, right? Because you have so much information. It used to be that my dad would be able to sit down at the table and he read a newspaper. And then at the end of the night, he'd probably watch some kind of program that came on at 6 or 7. And those were his news sources. And so he spent a little bit of time, an hour or so, reading the paper and an hour or so looking at the news. And in 2 hours, he got all the information that he needed. Now we have a whole different ballgame. Now you can spend 5 minutes here and 5 minutes there. And in the same 2 hours, you consumed way more information because you've done it all over the day. I spent 5 minutes on CNN. I spent 5 minutes on Google. I spent 5 minutes on what's going on the latest music trends, what's going on the latest furniture, because it's so fast. How do we capitalize on that? How do we make this sales and marketing situation better with news that happens immediately?
Well, I think that that's part of the bigger thing going on. And it starts with making sure that our people are great, right? So if our people are great and they can close that customer and not just, right, this is a special business because we're not closing that customer one time. We're closing that customer that one time plus 52 more, plus 78 more, plus 104 more, whatever the payment term is, we are selling this thing every week, bi-weekly, whatever, and going on that. So we have to make sure that we're creating that value. We have to make sure that we're taking care of that customer. Look, I mean, the products are all the same, right? For the most part, a 75-inch TV is a 75-inch TV. But how well did I do a good enough job of making sure that this solved a problem for the customer, that I understood what the customer was looking for and that this worked for them? And then did I take care of that customer? Do I take care of that customer every single time that we talk to them and stuff like that? Am I asking for those referrals so I have the ability to sell them, which in a lot of cases gives me the ability to take care of a customer? But, there's also a kind of a subconscious part of when I'm working referrals and I'm talking to other people, it's forcing me to make sure my service is good. I don't want to sit there and say, hey, I got your name for Pete. And then Pete's going to come back and say, hey, don't buy from that guy. He didn't know what he was talking about or whatever. So it's building that. It's building, that's one of the great things about this business that I love is no matter how many stores we have in an area, in a company or whatever, every person is kind of running their own little business in a store. And so we build that reputation that, this brand is the place that I come. This store is the place that you go for furniture, electronics, and appliances because we've built that reputation. We have marketed, so we have created that awareness. We have done that stuff. We have promoted well and we've done sales and had that opportunity. We've taken good care of our customers. We know what we're doing in the sales process. And, we've all those things, explain the transaction, everything. We've all read the comments on Facebook. You've seen the different complaints, at Pissed Consumer or whatever, where people sit there and talk about. And again, are there some bad folks out there potentially that are trying to take advantage of us? Yeah, but probably more often than not, we get fired or have a problem with the customer that leads to us getting fired with the customer because we didn't do a good job with the sales process. So we worked really hard to get this customer into a deal that went south after 30 days or something like that. And whatever revenue we collected from that customer, we're going to spend 10x that fixing it on the branding side.
I think so. Listening to that, and I'm so in agreement. What comes to my mind is in a world that's so fast and speedy, the best thing to be is absolutely consistent. Because you can't beat that. Because that's always, right? So no matter how fast the news changes, no matter how things are going, no matter how much marketing, how much promotion happens, the best thing to do is be solid and consistent. Make sure when somebody walks in the door, you're taking care of them. Make sure you get all the information. Make sure that you handle it quick and easy. But don't forget the customer service. And I almost feel like sometimes that falls to the wayside where we get so excited about the sales piece. And I can tell you right now, in Tampa, there's at least 5 to 7 different companies that I can name. At least 25 different locations. Not necessarily all to the same company, but one company, several locations. Here at Buddy's Home Furnishings, we have that. There's Rent King, there's Rack, there's Aaron's, there's Great Rooms, there's Happy's. I mean, we're all over the place. They're all over the place. So when I talk about the difference in sales and I talk about the difference in marketing and I talk about the difference in promotions, the best thing that I can do is be consistent. If you call my store, I'll answer within 3 rings. If you have a question, I'm going to figure it out. If you have a service, I'm going to take care of you. If you have a need, I'll figure out a way to make it happen and do it in such a way where we don't get lost in the weeds. We don't get lost in everything else.
Totally. And, we started out the conversation talking about marketing and sales, but I'll say there's a third component to it. It's marketing, sales, and service. I do not believe that you can be a sales-focused company without being service-focused. Otherwise, we're just chasing our tails. We're slinging deals out there, doing all of those things. But if we are truly committed to service, the sales will come. If we're truly committed to sales, we'll be better at the service as well. I think those two things work hand in hand.
Well, when we said that, you're right. We started out with sales versus marketing, and I feel like what we keep on saying is there is no sales without marketing. There's no marketing without sales. That is a double-edged sword that gets stuck to one hilt. And you have to have great opportunity to do both. If you have good marketing, you'll get people. If you don't have good sales, you won't get any sales. But if you have great sales and not good enough marketing, you might not get enough out of it. So this really isn't one component over the next. It's really how well can you do both to be as successful as you need to be. And then you add service. Now, service to me, I think we don't talk about it enough. When you're talking about service, is there any way to get away from that in the sales business when you're talking about rent to own? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. And I think service comes in, we're sitting here talking about sales. And I think that, a sale isn't just a customer walking in the door and he says, I need X. A sale isn't just me picking up and I'm calling inactive customers, or I'm calling last week's returns, or I'm doing any of that stuff. A sale really happens at every customer touch point. A sale happens when a customer comes in to make the payment, right? A sale happens when our delivery driver makes that delivery. I've talked to stores quite a bit, over the last few years, and we always talk about, hey, when is our customer happiest? And, 99.9% of the time, the answer is always when they get the product. Who's the last person to see the customer? The DT. Therefore, who's one of the most important people in that relationship? The DT. If he's banging on walls, if he's not setting stuff up correctly, whatever it is, no matter how good we are at sales and stuff, that service aspect kills it. But that DT's also potentially a great salesperson. He's got to sell the customer that they made the right decision. He should be selling the customer of, hey, Miss Jones, are you happy with your product? Can I get 2 names of your friends that would make great customers for me? All of those things. If we look at every single customer touch point as a sales opportunity, that changes our mindset. But I'm pretty sure, and I think that, a lot of folks, at least a lot of the folks that I work with, don't train like this. We may talk about this stuff and things like that, but we're not working on that and not going through the motions and role playing and doing all of those things for every customer touch point. Heck, Pete, when we go to the bank and make a bank deposit, right? That is an opportunity when we're talking to the teller to potentially sell them on something. And that's like what truly building a sales culture is all about.
I remember the first time that I was pitched coming to rent to own, I was a bank teller. And somebody came in and they said, hey, I think you'd make, a great salesperson, or I think you'd be a great fit in my location. I had no idea what rent to own was. 19 years later, well, actually it's 23 years later. I took a small hiatus, but 19 years later after being in the business, I'm glad he did that, but I would have never been a part of that. And so you're building what you essentially would be the new blood to come into your system. The new blood, you got to bring it in, right? Because you got people that are retiring all the time or people who leave all the time, and we got to bring it in. But there's new ways to do things. Marketing is one of those fickle things where one day something's great and then the next day it's not, right? It used to be, again, I'm just going to take it back from the newspaper. I mean, newspaper was king. Now I got people lucky to sell 10 of them on a Sunday. Not like it used to be. Rent to own, I think, is going through that. We've held on to some of our ancient, archaic ways of doing things. I don't want to say too much about that, but there's always the go-tos. But what's the new way to market? What's the new way to get out there and say? Because we've got the service with the sales, and we're leaning a lot towards the sales. I don't know if their sales are beating marketing right now, but I can say that's something that I can tell we're passionate about. Well, let's back it up a little bit. How do we make marketing as sweet as the sales aspect? What are the new ways to get our knowledge out there, to let the people know that I'm here, that I want to help you. This is what I have. This is what I do. And I can give you a robust idea of everything that we encompass, because we have TVs, we have appliances, we have furniture, we have electronics. That's a lot in one cup. Okay. So how do I get that across? Because people like quick and they like easy. What are some of the best ways to do that nowadays versus putting an ad in the paper back in the day. And I know I'm going a little bit further back than I probably should, but I just want to compare the differences to how crazy it is now versus it used to be. What are the better ways to get our name brand out there?
I think that and this isn't limited to just to this industry, but I think that one of the things that happened, and we started doing this pre-COVID, and I think during COVID it got a little bit worse and we haven't gone back, is we have to make sure that we're touching customers, touching the marketplace in multiple ways, that we're omnipresent out there, that they see us, they notice our store when they're driving down the road, right? Have we done anything different, right? Like anything else, right? You walk into your office every single day and there's a piece of paper on the floor. You'll notice it on day one. On day two, you might notice it, but by the end of the week, you don't even know it's there. And it's the same thing with our storefronts, with our vehicles, with everything like that, right? If we're not changing it up, I always tell people we have to disrupt the environment. If we're not changing it up, if we're not being a little bit obnoxious to get to know, for people to see us and things like that, I think that's thing one, right? So we have to touch them, whether it's out of store, right? So in front of our stores, at events, things like that, with our vehicles, right? I think mail is a key component of it. I still believe in that. And there's more and more studies that are coming out that, hey, mail's not dead and it's actually a little bit more effective than we thought it was. I think digital's a part of it, right? And I think that now with the breadth of streaming services, that impact has been multiplied a little bit, or the difficulty of it has been multiplied a little bit. It may not just be being on Facebook, right? We need to pop up in front of customers, whether it's on Hulu or on the Roku service or whatever like that, to where they see us and they're not specifically in a certain place looking for us. I think it's all of those things, but I think we really have to focus on making sure that we are consciously being seen out there, that we're being, different and stuff like that, as opposed to just saying, hey, I'm going to run an ad or I'm going to do a mailer or whatever it is, and hope that one thing that we're doing hits that customer at the right time when they're thinking about that, right? And I think we talked about this on the last one. I can't convince somebody to buy a washer and dryer if my washer and dryer is not broken. If it's working great and it's fine in my house, no amount of free time, Pete, no matter how much you discount it, no matter what you do, is going to make me change it out. But when that washer and dryer breaks, or when it floods the laundry room or whatever, and I need a new washer and dryer, who am I thinking of? Oh, I saw your truck going down the road. I think those guys did that. And seeing that truck or seeing the flags in front of your store triggers the, hey, I think I got something in the mail from them once, or I saw them on Facebook, or then I Google something, best place to buy a mattress, and the pixels help continue to bring this up in my Facebook feed, and I get the retargeting and all of those things. I think the bigger part of it is we have to look at our message and promotion, right? And when I say promotion, I'm not talking about event, I'm talking about how we promote the word out there, is being more omnipresent to touch customers, as opposed to just saying, hey, we're going to touch you this one way. Look, I'm an older guy, so I don't necessarily focus as much on social media and things like that. If your sole strategy is to market to people like me through Facebook, you've lost with me. I don't go on Facebook every day. I have Facebook because I have to have it for work, and I may look at it once a week or something like that. So that's not the way. Or if I'm traveling and that direct mail piece hits on Monday and I'm out of town till Wednesday, and then I'm looking at a whole pile of mail. It's all of those things, but that's why we need multiple touch points, just to continuously reinforce to people that we're real. Hey, look, I've mentioned in the other podcast that I do a lot of work with Mattress Firm, and people have always asked, right? Why does Mattress Firm do it? Why do they there was one in Bradenton down here. There was, an intersection where on 3 of the 4 corners, there was a Mattress Firm stores. And that happened through acquisition, but they kept the stores open. They kept their signs up. They created omnipresence, right? They didn't want a competitor going in there. They created that. And then you hear them on the radio and you see them on TV. And if you get, Red Plum or Velastis or any kind of marriage mailer, they're a wrap on a lot of those things. They are creating that presence.
So what I hear is consistency on either end, no matter how you look at it, you've got to constantly be reaching out on every single touch point to make sure that every time that somebody gets touched by one of our pieces of marketing, that they can call up the phone and we have consistent sales on consistent marketings on a consistent basis, 24/7, 365.
Yeah, and it's that, and it's also having faith. I'm not opposed to data and using data to track progress and stuff like that. But I am opposed to people that, hey, how did our marketing do last week? Do we need to adjust the budget? Sometimes it happens on a little bit longer cycle, right? There's been, there's a book out there called The 13-Week Year. And I know that everybody's gone to this stuff and things, and they talk about it. And yes, all these KPIs and all these metrics are important, but there is a part of the marketing that is momentum based, right? We are not going to, if I launch a campaign and I'm going to sit there and say, hey, we're going to go all in on this and we're going to do this, don't come back next week and sit there and say, hey, can we track this? Do we have any idea of what it's doing and stuff like that? Because we're going to make adjustments. The other part is when we do that stuff and our people hear us doing that stuff, they start to not buy in. Oh, okay, so we're not totally behind this and everything like that. If we're going to promote, if we're going to do these things, make a commitment to do that. Set your marketing budget. This is my marketing budget is X percentage of sales. My marketing budget is $400,000 a year, whatever it is. And I'm going to do that no matter what, right? Am I going to make every decision perfect? No. Am I going to do some events that may not work out or run a sale that may not work out? Yes, it may happen. But once I commit to it over the course of a year, I can see what I can get better at.
And those are the wise words from Andrew. And I want to say, I think every time we sit down, I learn a little bit more. And I love it. I love sitting down and talking with you. Andrew Hajduk from Vox-pop-uli. Guys, if you need to set up something where you have sales or marketing needs, Andrew's the guy to talk to you about it because he can help you with both. They can set up some situations where they can show your guys how to get it done and then sit down with you and show you how to get the marketing done. And this is all from somebody who's been in the business, who knows about rent to own. There's nothing worse that I hear about us going to some place and we say, hey, we want to do some marketing, and they have no idea what rent to own is or what it is that we're trying to accomplish. Those are some of the best things that I can say about Vox-pop-uli. We love having you on, and we think that right now, I'm just going to say my word of the day is consistency. Whether it's sales or whether it's marketing, you've got to stay on point. And I think if you drop in any which way of those situations, you're going to feel it. You're going to feel it right now. I don't think there's a time that would be more important than to tell you, chicken or the egg. They're just as important to get done. And if we don't push on those avenues right now, I think rent-to-own's in a very weird place right now. And if we don't make those things happen, we will fall to the wayside. And that's not what we're going to do. Not if I have anything to do with it, and not the RTO show. Andrew, anything else you want to cover before we go?
No, that's love being on, and I love having these discussions. I feel like we could talk for hours on this, Pete. I will just say that we did it at Vox, and yes, we're a little bit different, but we're still a business that relies on sales and stuff like that. We made a commitment to training. We have somebody come in to work with us, and we do it on a weekly basis and stuff like that. The impact in our company has been amazing, and I would challenge everybody to look at stuff like that, because when we don't invest in it, when we don't hire somebody else to do it, and we try to do it ourselves, that's also one of the first things to go. But, it all starts with saying, hey, we can all be better at sales. And then how do we do it and recognize all the sales opportunities we have?
Every touch point is a sales opportunity. Let's make it happen. Guys, if you guys want to contact the show, please do. Hit me up on my email at pete@thertoshowpodcast.com, or you can go to website at thertoshowpodcast.com. Take a look, see some of our pictures. And if you want to drop us a line, you can drop us a line on there. You can visit us online at any time on social media. You can just look up the RTO Show on Facebook or Instagram. And please subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever else you get your podcasts. And as always, I just want to let you guys know, keep your collections low, get your sales high. Have a good one.